Hey, welcome to Star Wars Force Time. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I'd very much appreciate it. So today we're dealing with the novelization from Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker by Ray Carson from the expanded edition. Yesterday I did a video on another part of the novel which I entitled Chewie and Ben. It was two scenes that I enjoyed and wish made it into the cut of the movie. Today, with regard to the Luke and Leia scenes, I'm going to highlight three very brief scenes. I'm glad it did not make the movie because I just don't like the way it was portrayed. So let's just get into it and you can make a decision for yourself. The first excerpt is very short. Everybody is at the Resistance base getting ready for Rey and the gang to go to Pisana. So they're readying the ship and whatnot. And then out of nowhere, Leia hears a voice in her head. "Leia," came Luke's voice. "No, Luke," Leia whispered back. "It's time," Luke said. He'd been pleading with her for a while now, and his voice was relentless, as if it came from within her very soul. Not just yet. Okay, so that's the first scene. Clearly not the first time Luke has been nagging at her in her head, so. Okay, so the second scene is a short scene as well, and this takes place at the Resistance base between Luke and Leia again. They just found out that the Millennium Falcon is back online, and Leia is giving a celebratory congratulations speech to the crew and engineering who were working so hard to try and get communications back online with the Falcon. And as she's congratulating them and wrapping up her speech in the final line, yet again she hears a voice pop into her head, and I will begin. "Leia," of course he chose the end of her speech to interrupt. "You're becoming a pest," she told Luke. She felt his smile. "Time to say goodbye," he said. "Not just yet." She stumbled a little on her way to her quarters, but Connix was there in a flash to support her. As they headed past the tent of four, she overheard R2-D2 ask Maz a question. "Yes, R2, Maz said. She knows what she has to do. To reach her son now will take all she has left." Leia decided to ignore that, like she was ignoring Luke. She was just so tired, she could lie down. Connix helped her to her cot. After the girl left, Leia grabbed Han's medal and lay back holding it close to her chest. Okay, so that's the second one. As we can tell, Luke is relentless, and the whole time to say goodbye, basically telling her that it's time for her to die. The first time he says, "It's time," she says, "Not just yet." This time he elaborates one step further, says, "It's time to say goodbye, not just yet." And she feels so frail because she still is not up to par with regard to her injuries that she received after the Radis exploded and she flew into space. So I just find it insensitive the way that Luke is approaching her. Clearly, he's not elaborating enough for me to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's time to say goodbye. I don't like it. So let's continue on with the third and final excerpt. This one takes place in the Resistance base between Luke and Leia. She's about to pass away. And Kylo and Rey are on the remnants of the Death Star, duking it out with their lightsabers. Here we go. Kylo froze, lightsaber held high. "Leia, there's only one thing left to do. Galaxy, save us all from big brothers," she thought. Luke said, "You must try to reach Ben." She flashed back to holding her tiny son in her arms, his black hair still wet with birth, the way he'd cried all the time in those early months but settled whenever he sensed that she or Han or Chewie was near. His first steps, his first word, the first time he'd sent a toy flying across the room with the power of the Force, calling on his tiny toddler rage. "I never gave up hope for him," she said. "Tell him," said Luke. The effort to reach Ben would take everything she had left. She couldn't do it. It would be her ultimate failure to leave behind everyone she loved, everything she'd worked for. Leia had to stay. She had to continue fanning the tiny flame of hope or the Resistance would die. "Leia," Luke prompted. If Vader could become Anakin again, Kylo Ren could become Ben. Her son was tempted by the light. She could sense it. But even if he never turned back the way Anakin did, she still loved him, and her legacy was secure. She was Leia, Skywalker, Organa Solo. As she caressed Han's medal, she fully embraced all those inheritances, and she would pass them all to the next generation. Her Skywalker legacy would go to Rey, Organa to Poe, and she would try one last time to pass her solo legacy to her son. So that's how it would be, a final act of hope, and then she would rest. She reached for the Force, let it surround her, fill her. She thought the effort would exhaust her, but she felt a momentary rush of strength and energy as she connected with every living thing. She reached deeper, and then deeper still, with all the life and love and hope and forgiveness in her being. She called out, "Ben." Her last thought washed through the galaxy like a wave. She was vaguely aware of Han's metal clattering to the floor and aware of sadness from R2-D2. And finally, a surge of welcome from Luke. He was not alone. Kylo Ren's gaze suddenly became distant, and he dropped his lightsaber. I don't know, I still think he was portrayed in a way that just didn't sit well with me. That's not the Luke that I knew from Return of the Jedi. It's not the Luke that I hoped would speak at the end of The Force Awakens, and it's too close to the Luke that I had in The Last Jedi. So, yeah. Well, maybe a comic or a book will restore his compassion in some way, shape, or form. But the way that he came across in this book, I'm very pleased that it was not included in the film. And we'll leave it at that. May the Force be with you, always.